I said, my brother, when me on the day. Me, I know, say you don't know. Me, I know when me on the day. I know when me on the day. That is such a one on the day. I know when me on the day. That trouble is in me on the day. I know when me on the day. Where you at? Wake up when you smell the last day. Whip your hands. Come on. I know you're sleeping now. You gotta whip us more, yeah? Okay, let's go. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us.
Yeah, Joyce, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm trying. Thank God.
The people lie to us. The government betray us.
How you doing too? How is your end?
We tire with the promises that led us to all our damages. We tire with the speech they preach in thee, and now you need they deceive us. The thing we saw, it frustrates us. So why did you lie? Why did you steal? Why did you allow the citizens to be? See, we just tell you that why we vote tell you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and little abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. We tire with the promises that led us to all our damages. We tire with the speech they preach in thee, and now you need they deceive us. The thing we saw, it frustrates us. So why did you lie? Why did you steal? Why did you allow the citizens to be? See, we just tell you that why we vote tell you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and little abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They get lies, they get steal, they go knock them out. No one to trust. My people don't want to hope on somebody. My hope that I have so where are the schools? Where are the roads? Where are the roads that they say they were poor? They do selfish. People tired with their wretched. People tired. You see the reason why we ask why the government betray us.
I don't want to become president. We still want to become president. Obi doesn't want to become president. President, you see, want to become president. Mr. Kpakio want to become president. president. Yeah, God. Now the president business will be. We suffering for some more. Mr. Lala want to become president.
But it means I have me back when you things go in alright. And you know that ain't alright, ain't alright. I said things I used to see people, he said I was crazy because I had a love, he left, he said I was Larry. But I took my own time, I have a story in my arm. But in my whole heart, girl, I swear I was big. He used to come before me, stop me car every evening. Where you going at? On your car, ask for me, said he got me visit. High and all of a sudden, the camera pulled up with his ride. And I was like, bye, and all the time, I'm a girl, I swear I was blind. She used to leave me and carry on funny lines. But I kept it to myself because I feel that to my lover. And not because I left her, then she might have been somewhere in a right. And you know that ain't alright, ain't alright, ain't alright.
Right, let me say hello. Happy weekend to you all. If you are happy, if you're celebrating, happy weekend. For anybody in hospital, we pray that you get well. Welcome. Today, let's talk about the TRC. I want us to talk about the TRC and, and talk about the work that those individuals that we actually gave the responsibility to at the time to make sure that they craft the TRC well for us. We mandated them to we mandated them to go out and engage with the Liberian community back home and abroad. I commissioned them to and also empower them so that they can ensure that the work is done and done perfectly. So the TRC, as we all know, it was given birth in Ghana, Accra, Ghana, during the Akosombo Accord signing. That accord is the one that actually ended the war. That accord was the accord that brought the Liberian warlords together. And so the agreement was that such should be established, wherein Liberians themselves will decide as to what should happen to all of those that participated or that actually directed the war, those that funds the war. What should happen to them? And Liberian people should make that decision and take it to the law. And so, with that mandate being given, the former president of Liberia, is Her Excellency Madam Sirleaf, went to work and empowered them. First of all, commissioned the body. And appointed people to head the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Councillor Jerome Verdier was the chair of the commission. And so since then, they took almost 3 years to complete the process. They went across Liberia. From there, they went to the USA. Don't know of any other diaspora country they went to, but I know they went to the USA and engaged the Liberian community in some states. And they participated. And some of them gave accounts of what they know about Liberia and what they know about the Civil War, or let me say the madness that took place in our land. And with such mandate, it left with us now Liberians to say, well, since the work is done and we have recommendations from the TRC, or those that were heading it. It's about time that we put it into practice and let it come into full swing. But unfortunately, after the work of the committee or the commission, the copy of the report was presented to the former president, I think, and also the House of Representatives, because in fact they're supposed to draft it. The legislatures are supposed to actually draft and push for these recommendations to come into full swing. But unfortunately, since then, thank you so much, dear fellows. Welcome to the show. If you want to, you can call, buddy. I'm talking about TRC here. It's an open mic. You can call, make your contribution as well. And so, the legislatures actually, by virtue of the recommendations and who's supposed to take lead of it, should have taken lead in ensuring that indeed the TRC and its recommendation come to pass. The madam didn't care about it. The only time she actually put interest in it to commission the body was because at the end of the day, that's the only way she could get good money from the international community, from the African Union, from ECOWAS. That's the only way she could get support. And so she have to quickly commission that body. And in a way, let me say, I will just close my eyes and, and tell them what to do. Let me get my support I need, and y'all will finish with the work you'll give it to me. Y'all will see whether I will do it. Well, that's how I think she actually went with it. That is why she got huge support from the international community. Money was pouring in, and the whole year she's doing good because she have commissioned this body to ensure that indeed those perpetrators of the war should face justice. And support started coming in, sorry. But then the work was done. But since then, I think it's about 9 years after while she was in power, nothing we could hear of it. For every time journalists, especially international journalists, want to find out about this issue of the TRC, the Oman will avoid it. If the question happened to come out, and that's the way she will answer, to the extent that you won't do any follow-up question. And key players like Senator Prince Johnson as well, whenever the question of the TRC happened to come to him, the words that he actually manufactured then, trash, will always come to play. The TRC is the trash. So said Prince Johnson. And so the country is where it is today because of the failure to implement all of the recommendations that are within the TRC. To be honest with you, if the TRC would have come to light and have been all the recommendations have been implemented, especially the one that talks about banning people for 30 years for active political participation. What we are seeing now, you won't be seeing it. Whatever we are experiencing today, you won't be experiencing it. Because the TRC as well talks about good governance and how to get rid of corruption as well. So imagine some of these people that are in power now today, or that were in power during the era of Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, were completely out of the picture, not in this boat. Probably by now, we will sit there and be complaining about the U.S. rate is too high, prices are too high. Children are not going to school because parents cannot afford school fees, and vis-a-vis. And so that's where we betrayed ourselves, I can say, yeah. Yes, those of us that wanted it to be implemented, or all of the recommendations to be implemented, that couldn't get it go through, we only talk and we called for it. But those who are at the forefront of it refused to listen to us. And so we are going to go a little bit in the TRC today, because this is a voluminous document. It's quite huge, and even our lawmakers, I can bet anybody, even our lawmakers, probably 99% of them in the house or in the both houses, are yet to read this TRC. Yes. So they have no clue. So some of us, like me, have been dealing with this TRC for quite a while, since since it came into being, and up to the time the report came out, and I was sent a copy, and I started reading sharing the copy here. I've come to realize that indeed this issue of the TRC is paramount. Liberia will remain doomed if we don't accept the implementation of the TRC. They don't care who is in power. And we fail to do it in the next 2 years or so. My fellow citizen, Liberia will have no future. The children of Liberia will have no future. This generation that we're seeing today, the generation that seems to be lost, they don't even know how to make a choice. This generation that's celebrating corruption, this generation that is involved in acts of wickedness, they will actually transfer everything to the next generation. And so once those vices happen to get into us and we are immune to it, the issue, the question of us not preparing future for the next generation will be in. And this is what I'm telling you, that if we don't pay attention to the issue of the TRC, the establishment of a war crimes court for Liberia, and punish those that are supposed to be punished in that land, Liberia and the children of the next generation will not have a future. And this is sad. It is sad in the sense that you have the nation that people are boasting of, that it is a sovereign nation, that we are in a way are responsible, or we are very much responsible to the extent that we can actually handle everything on our own. But it's just on the face of the earth, that's all. But it's not happening in reality. We are no longer trusted, even as government. And in the eyes of the international friends, we no longer trust it. And so it behooves all the responsibility as citizens of this land. Those of us who really want the future of Liberia or the children of Liberia in next generation to have a brighter future, we have to keep pushing for this. These guys cannot continue to be kings and queens when they ruined our land yesterday, when they destroyed it yesterday, when they raped the resources yesterday. The majority of them today are living on those resources. The outcome of them, the benefit that they got from there, their children will no longer suffer. Their children will continue to benefit, to enjoy their life. But it's all about fruit. The trees that actually grew those fruit that they harvested, and today they are enjoying the day and their children are enjoying it, and the majority of us are suffering, and we're not getting any benefit out of it. Those fruits are all of us fruit. The trees that bear those fruits were planted by our forefathers, was given by the Almighty God, was blessed by the Almighty God. And so this is why it is prudent that all of us should continue to play part. We should continue to play a part. There are people in our land, probably since Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf came to power, they have not gotten a job to do. Yes. Probably since after the Civil War, they have never been back to job to earn money. There are people in that land, in Liberia. And that's not a joke. You to bring up a family in a very, very poor environment, especially in a very, very poor home. It's degrading. Those children's future are always challenging. Lack of opportunity. They can be as clever as God can give them the knowledge. So long you don't have the means to support them, they won't move forward. And so let me take a short musical break, and from there we hear from PYJ, and from PYJ we will go into the TRC and I'll read some of what was said there in the TRC. For those of you that just joined in, welcome to this special edition of Justice Forum Liberia, an advocacy group advocating for social justice. It's great to be with you this afternoon or late afternoons on this Saturday, the 31st, last day of August 2019. Tomorrow churches will be packed again in Liberia. Mamovo.
get them go back out of town. Papa, you move from here, what in your way? Jesse, play your low.
Welcome back. Let's go down to PYJ. Let's listen to PYJ a little bit just before we go into a little bit of the TRC.
Wrong speaking out against Mr. George Weah. Why do you think he would be the wrong person to rule this country?
He was the world best.
You have been very strong speaking out against Mr. George Weah. Why do you think he would be the wrong person to rule this country?
He was the world best, European best, Africa best, all the best, right? He made so much money. We are told $93 million. I stand to be corrected in this amount. But he made so much money to the extent that the United Nations looked at him and made him what? United Nations ambassador for UNICEF, to donate his money to suffering children around the world. How many children in Liberia did he prioritize? Nothing. There's no George Weah Foundation, there's no sports academy, there's no recreation center, there's no public library for public school students, there is absolutely nothing. Money is gone. You want to be president to set over our resources. The same way you mismanage yours, you will mismanage ours. That's what I think. We fear rigging. We fear rigging. If there's a rig election, we fear national civil response by the people of this country.
I fear that she might use her power not to rig for maybe the Unity Party, but for her new favorite candidate.
Well,
now.
she's a politician, is a very tricky person. A politician is unpredictable. So she might, because her son is in CDC. She might, and then Senator Besson Afili, that she has been supporting all along and interacting with, is also in CDC. McIntosh is in CDC. A lot of prominent people from executive mansion, they're in CDC. So she might be carrying out a diversionary tactics while at the same time be aiming at somebody no one is thinking of. Nobody knows. Because her second cousin is Bronsky. Bronsky's mother, Ellen's mother, were first cousin. So Ellen and Bronsky are second cousin. Okay? So her son is in CDC. All of these people with Ellen are in CDC. So people might say, oh, because her son is in CDC, she might break in favor. No. She might possibly.
One, two. All right, that's the voice of PYJ. We just got up.
Rick in favor of somebody I've been hearing about, perhaps Ellis Cummings. The stranger in the political terrain. But it's possible.
Everybody in Liberia is, of course, praying for peaceful elections. But if there are signs of the kind of rigging that you just mentioned, what is the way forward then?
We want peace. We need peace. We deserve peace. But because we need peace, we deserve peace, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who also signed onto that document, she live by the peace, by being neutral in our election. The only say I believe she can have is to put a one vote, in the one vote, but not to interfere. Nobody want to run away. I have established foundation. I have big schools. and they will graduate students every year, they pass wire. We don't want any trouble here, but we cannot spend our millions for election and you go and rig.
So if that happens?
If that happens, there will be a national civil response. A national civil response.
What method?
I said national civil response. They will use the constitution because their peace and their future will be in danger. So they will respond.
Well,
All right, okay. That was Senator Priwa J there. Was not a Redcliffe that I was looking for. I was looking for the interview about the war crimes code. Yeah. Still looking for it. Let me see. I'm home. I will get it. I still checking in my library to see. Okay, hopefully I will get it because I can see some improvement. Welcome to the show. We're here at Justice Forum Liberia. We advocate for social justice, indeed advocating for the establishment of war and economic crimes code for Liberia. For those of you that are here, thank you for joining in. But I'm going to go first. Let me go first to the USA, and let's go to the USA first.
Protecting human rights across the globe is not just morally the right thing to do, but it is also vital to our own national security. Stopping war crimes before they happen is just as important as ensuring that justice prevails afterwards. Without justice, there cannot be healing for the victims, and the cycle of turbulence will start anew. This is why I'm proud to sponsor H.R. 1055 to affirm strong United States-Liberian ties and support for democratic principles and call for full implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendations, including the establishment of an extraordinary criminal tribunal for Liberia. My district, Staten Island and South Brooklyn, is home to thousands of Liberians who have fled the turbulence of civil war. My constituents have directly told me how important it is to them that Liberia establish an extraordinary war crimes tribunal. Liberia itself recommended the establishment of a war crimes tribunal in its own Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Liberia's current president, President George Weah, called for the establishment of a war crimes tribunal in 2004 as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. It is time to put this into action. At this very moment, people who have committed unspeakable war crimes hold positions in Liberia's government. For example, Senator Prince Y. Johnson is an infamous warlord who tortured and murdered former President Samuel Doe. There is a video of Johnson's sickening mutilation of President Doe, where Johnson is despicably sipping on a beer, fanned by an assistant, while Johnson's minions cut off Doe's ear. With the presence of Johnson and others in the current government, we are seeing Liberia's slow creep backward towards the murderous mayhem of its Civil War days. Liberians are rightfully clamoring for justice. Without it, I fear there will be further violence and turbulence which nobody wants to see. This is why it is so crucial to call upon Liberia and President Weah to establish a war crimes tribunal.
All right, that was from congressional representation of the United States of America. When he was calling on, and of course he actually sponsored a bill for the establishment of war and economic crimes code for Liberia. And it's so shameful that up to now, our country is just behind, and we don't care. But let's go. Let me go to PYJ again, because I don't know whether my library would take me there, because it's trying to play off now. So okay, hopefully we will get there a little bit later. I'm looking for that that interview with PYJ again. Not really the interview. My interview with him. Another one. Probably it's not coming over, so. Oh, okay. Okay. I can't see that. I don't know whether that's a show. Some teachers. All right. Let's see whether. I'm not sure whether this is this one or so. World War II. I don't know.
2 minute talks are on the radio. When you open the radio, the talk show, what's your view? They talk foolishness because they're not wise. If you're not wise, you are foolish. So I'm a former hand, eh? Then you come call my people through, call the truth, kill them. You know the old we told in the army? We taught the oath in the army to defend the people, the sovereignty, not the sovereignty of the president. We told the army not to execute illegal orders unlawful
because of what 11 men have done to her. I speak for her. I speak for my uncle who was murdered before me because of his religion. I speak for him. I come from the background of Muslims family where I see when they were raped. I was at a checkpoint as a little girl when people pulled my families all in a group and then murdered them. I saw that as a child. This is not a joke. We didn't come in to come show up. We want a leader who will put his foot down and don't be associated with war crime people. Like Prince Johnson, like anything you can leave who are selling and exploiting our country. He cannot associate with a woman like that and call himself a leader. We demand justice today. We demand justice tomorrow. We demand justice yesterday. Justice must be established in this world. I speak for those people. I speak for my people in Grand Kpakio County who were murdered in a mass grave. And I have uncles who were imams who were murdered on their religion. I speak for them because I know they cannot speak for themselves. Wow. So when you're on social media, I will ask you one question. What will history remember you for tomorrow? Wow. What will you remember for history? Will you be the one that will naysayers in the back who talk and laugh at us? But we know that tomorrow, because of us, change will come to Liberia. And even if I'm gone, and the day my children ask me the question, Mommy, why didn't you do something? There's video, there's recording, there's Facebook Live. They will say my mom stood up in the heart of New York City, right across the street from the UN headquarters, and she spoke for justice. Yes. She have
all right, that's it. Speaking out for justice, something so good to do. Very, very good to do. I feel good when I'm speaking out for justice. When I speak, I feel good when somebody is being bullied and I am actually advocating for them. I feel good about that. All right, let me see now. Let me see if we can go inside the TRC a little bit and just pass on to you some of those beautiful, well, recommendations and. You know, the wonderful work that the wonderful people did in terms of bringing this TRC to light. Let's look at the consolidated final report. Let's look. I'm going to read out to you first of all the table of contents, so you can get a picture. With respect to this TRC thing, because it wasn't. Some people just feel that perhaps they just went straight to work and they met people who are victims of the civil war. They met people who could give account of it, who saw what happened, who experienced something, and they wanted to talk about. No, they decided to go far beyond 1989, because we all know December. The eve of Christmas in 1989, that's when the NPFL launched the the so-called freedom fighter war, right? And so let me go in the TRC and give you the table of contents. Then before I will choose, from one to another to just share with you. List of abbreviations. They have list of abbreviations, and then they also have acknowledgements, and they have a final statement from the commission. And then they have what they call quotations. They have executive summary. They have mandate of the TRC. They got background of the founding of Liberia. They have history of the conflict, findings and determinations. Then they have recommendations to the people of Liberia, to the government of Liberia, to the international community. And then we'll go down further. You say introduction. They have the beginning, a profile of commissioners of the TRC of Liberia. So meaning they have to tell you who all were in the on the commission. Profile of International Technical Advisory Committee, Secretariat and specialized staff, commissioners, specialists, senior staff and administration. Then they have commissioners, International Technical Advisory Committee, special magistrate, senior staff and the secretariat, administration, benefits, TRC logo, meaning and unity depicted. And they have the mandate at 3.0. TRC mandate, a legal methodology. They have distinguishing RL from RHL. We'll know that later on. Distinguishing armed conflicts. Distinguishing armed violence from armed conflict. So these are two different things. So we have what they call armed violence and armed conflict. Okay, standard of proof. And then we have legal architecture standards and crimes. Okay. We also have gross human rights violations, GHRV, egregious domestic crimes, EDC. We have serious humanitarian law violations, SHLV, policy guidelines. And then further down, they have methodology, introduction, commissioner training and preparation. And they have domestic and international staff training, statement taking, civil society participation, outreach and hearings, national and international outreach and hearings. And then we have 4.7 women, children, inquiry, research, investigation and witness protection. They have thematic and institutional hearings. And they also have the mass media, religion, culture and tradition, youth, country consultations, county consultations and national conference on reconciliation, the diaspora, Benetech, and that's database, conflict mapping project. And then we have 5.0, it says background to the conflict. The early history of pre-Liberia, 1700 to 1847. So you see how far the people, the kind of work the people have done for this commission, for this TRC to just be thrown away like that. People went way back. The early history of pre-Liberia, 1700 to 1847. The transatlantic and trans-Sahara slave trade. Everything they talked about here. The ACS, that is the American Colonization Society in pre-Liberia. The evolution of settlers, hegemony, 1821 to 1847. Settlers, colonize and conflicts over land. from colony to Commonwealth, state making and conflict in the First Republic 1847 to 1944. They also have hinterland policies, the state and conflicts, and then they have the state instruments of coercion and slavery. And then when you go down a little bit, you have post-war or post-World War II Liberia 1944-1979. Okay, that take all the 1944 to 1979. Todman, a legacy of controversy 1944 to 1971. Todman's vendetta, detour, Coolman and family. William Aratoba Jr., the extraordinary decade of the 70s. To be or not to be, challenges of the old order. And then we also have rocking the boat, April 14 civil unrest. Background to a major political feud. The military interregnum, the Second Republic, 1980 to 1990. And then we also have, they also have here a failed coup and an ethnic feud. And then down 7.0, it says the Liberian Civil War, 1990 to 2003. Taylor's uprising, human rights violations, 1990 to 1997. First peace conference amidst worsening human rights and humanitarian crisis. And then we have ECOMOG arrives under NPFL gunfire. Securing peace with additional warring factions. Securing peace, 16 agreements brokered and broken. Imagine 16. Yeah, we have the meeting. No agreement will come back. They go back to war. Blue, they go back for another meeting. Some people will attend, some people will not attend. Then the people say, okay, we'll postpone it, we have to have everybody. They go back. 16, imagine, agreements brokered and broken. They were assigned, some of them will agree and they will sign it, and they go back, they break it, they start killing their people back. And then we also have 7.1.5 that says Taylor's deadly surge for power, Operation Octopus. And then we have Taylor becomes president of Liberia 1997, 2003. A new war, lured and model insurrections, 1999 to 2003. And we also have the lured and model insurgency, the CPA and international efforts to restore peace. In this table of contents in the TRC as well, we also have confronting the bitter past, truth, justice, and reconciliation. Truth, justice, and reconciliation. The work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And then we have background and history of the establishment of the TRC. Then we have public information, participation, and awareness. And then we also have statement taking, recruitment, training, deployment. And going down further is the hearings, victims, thematic, institutional, county, and diaspora. Types, in camera and public hearings. Category, victims and contemporary history of the conflict. Thematic and institutional hearings. We have classification, interviews, IT database, research, witness protection and security. And downwards we have towards greater democracy and the TRC process. Democratic participation and prevention of violence. And then we have people's knowledge is power in democratic settings. Credible dissemination of information helps. Composition of TRC country teams. Let's go back to that. Composition of the TRC county teams. Thank you. Last word on greater democracy. They will have preliminary and final consolidated reports. And then down further we say the diaspora experience, conflict mapping, catalogue of deadly conflicts, violations and atrocities, 1821 to 1979, then 1980 to 2003. Deadly conflicts between 1822 to 1915. Nature of human rights violations in the First Republic, 1847 to 1980. Catalogue of selected human rights violations over the period 1979 to 2003, mostly documented by non-TRC sources. Recorded massacres in Liberia 1979 to 2003. Nature, pattern and character of human rights violations and war crimes. Equivalency definition, crimes committed and how, 3 categories. Profile of warring factions, leaders, organizers, financiers, and then we also have challenges to the TRC process. Okay, 9.0, impact of the conflict and violations of the people's victims. Okay, IDPs and refugees, that's the internally displaced people, women, survivors and peacemakers, children, from child soldiers to youth perpetrators. Then we have men, then we have people with disabilities, the elderly, entrenched and marginalization, cultural, traditional and religious dimensions, the Liberian diaspora, economic crimes, public institutions. And let's go down a little bit. Findings 10.0, root causes of the conflict, historical root causes, antecedent causes, direct and immediate causes of conflict, the role of the United States of America, external actors, nature, pattern and character of human rights violations, women, the TRC and the conflict, children, social, cultural and economic dimensions of the conflict. They also cover the diaspora experience, holders of public offices, public institutions and the conflict, economic crimes and corruption, impact, plunder and impunity, nature and status of ex-combatants communities, DD and RR review, looming conflicts as sources of future violent conflicts. Go down a little bit to say 11.0, determinations, general determinations, determination on individual perpetrators, determinations on group perpetrators, determinations on corporate perpetrators, determinations on government perpetrators, determinations on economic crimes, determinations on the impact of violations on the population. And then they have reconciliation. Go down a little bit, 12.0, recommendations and accountability, extraordinary criminal tribunal. Accountability, extraordinary criminal tribunal for Liberia. Nature, jurisdiction and scope of authority of criminal tribunal. Names of those responsible perpetrators recommended for prosecution. Names of persons perpetrators not recommended for prosecution. Public sanctions Lustrations, debarment from holding public office, witness protections statute. At 13.0 says recommendations on accountability, domestic criminal prosecutions. Names of those responsible, perpetrators recommended for domestic prosecution. Names of persons perpetrators not recommended for prosecuted for prosecution. Public sanctions, restorations, debarment from holding public office, etc. And down 14.0 is a recommendation on accountability, public sanctions generally, nature, description, objective, and justification for public sanctions. And then lustration, debarment from holding public office, list of persons subject to recommended for public sanctions. And then let's go down to 15.0, recommendations on accountability, National Palaver Halt Commission, nature, description, objective, jurisdiction, and sanction authority of Palaver Halt. Names of those responsible, perpetrators recommended for Palaver Halt. Public sanctions, lustration, debarment from holding public office, etc. Other forms of accountability, traditional and informal mechanisms. Go down a little bit, 16.0, recommendations, economic crimes, investigation and prosecution, nature, definition and description, names of those responsible, perpetrators recommended for prosecution, nationalization of corporate assets unlawfully acquired, seizure on confiscation of individual assets unlawfully acquired as proceeds of economic crimes, repatriation of monies unlawfully acquired as proceeds of economic crimes, compulsory disclosure by banks and financial institutions, public interest imperative, names and categories of those persons and institutions that need further investigation. 17.0 say recommendations on reparations, memorials, addressing the needs of victims, the reparation trust fund, reparation for particular groups, individuals, and communities. 18.0 recommendation to the government of Liberia. Recommendations relating to building a new Liberian political culture. Recommendations related to civil and political rights, political parties, and civil society empowerment. Recommendations related to the administration of justice. Recommendations related to economic, social, and cultural rights. Recommendations related to women's rights, protection, and empowerment. Recommendations related to child's rights, advocacy, and protection. Recommendations related to the establishment and resourcing of the Independent National Human Rights Commission. And then recommendations related to combating corruption and institutionalizing good governance. Whistleblower statute. Oh, okay, this is really good. Whistleblower as well, they're supposed to protect them. And then recommendations relating to the decentralization of political and economic power. Recommendations on public integrity, integrity in Liberia. And then let's go down a little bit. 19.0, it says here, recommendations related to the Liberian diaspora, immigration issues. That's the one we're talking about, the citizenship now. Yeah, dual citizenship and whatsoever it is. Okay, this one says here, immigration status. Okay, vulnerability, empowerment, women, and youth-related issues. promoting reconciliation in the diaspora. Diaspora contribution to reparation trust fund and development programs. Rights of the diaspora to vote and maintain dual citizenship. So even they this in the TRC. The TRC didn't even talk about it. They didn't want to cover anything that has to just investigate the war. No. They cover almost everything. That when we resolve these issues, when we put the TRC into use, we will benefit a lot as a nation. Okay, 20.0, other recommendations. Recommendations to other sectors of the Liberian society. Recommendations relating to changing minds and attitudes. A new social engineering, national visioning. Recommendations relating to public integrity and public property. Recommendations relating to professional bodies, the media and the National Bar Association. Amnesty. Recommendations relating to the environment, natural resources, and the equitable and sustainable use and management of land and other natural resources. You see, that's quite important as well. Recommendations relating to land tenure, distribution, and reform specifically. And then 21.0 say recommendations to the international community, recommendation to the United Nations, recommendations regional and sub-regional and actors, recommendation to foreign states, international institutions, donor agencies, NGO, and other partners. And then finally, they have the bibliography and references. So we're not going to go into that. We're going to take a few. We're going to just have a look at few important things here. We are going to pick on one today, read it to you, and for you to be acquainted with the TRC. But before I do that, let me go back to let me take a short break and see whether I can find something to play for you in line with the TRC or so. If I found it. If I find it, then I will play it. Let me see. Okay, the latest one. Agnes, good afternoon from my end. Agnes, it's after 4 years. Good afternoon. How are you doing? I hope you are doing fine as well. Agnes, welcome.
If we are doing wrong, let us change. Too many inflammatory statements have been made. Some from the members of the regime. One is the city mayor having press conference and boasting how they will defend the government with their blood. When we advance the same war crime code, fear tactics they bring forward. Attacks the city mayor. We don't need war crime code. We need a UN-backed tribunal in Liberia, because our process was not only fought by nationals, but foreign people were also involved. Who supported who or what faction? Let the UN bring the tribunal here. If that is a solution. But we advise honestly from the pulpit of the living God that things are not right. What happened in Logantown was so bad. You don't bust people's car, injure people. What is power? Those who were before us, who were within this country and were having procedure, where are they now? When you go to Tottenham Farm, 0. You go to Bento, 0. What are you protecting? You can only protect by giving positive advice. I got one good friend in the world. It's not Christ. Here on earth, I got my best friend is my positive critic. The man who looked in my face and said, this is why you are doing wrong. But in the case of our regime, when you speak, they brand you all kind of names. They've done that to me. And they will threaten me and say, don't pull out. Because the War Crime Code is not being signed into law because of you. The speaker told me that. Buffett Chima told me that.
Senator Jazzy?
Then I must say it.
Senator Jazzy?
Because it's not a fear tactic that will move me from speaking.
Senator Jazzy?
Yes, sir. So I grab my weapon.
All right, you hold the, as advocates for this, calling for this establishment of war and economic crimes for Liberia. In as much as they have some, issues with the, with how they call with PYJ. The senator sometimes. In some instances, he can really speak out the truth. Yeah. He can say the truth. So, in the sense that PYJ is telling us that he is not in support of anything that has to do with punishing those who committed or who brought war on Liberia, because there are people who are threatening him always. That we, including he said, the speaker, but for Chimos. And he said that, each time I want to say something, they would threaten me and tell me that it is because of you that we are not speaking on this TRC thing, or the establishment of war and economic crimes code for Liberia. So in the sense, he's trying to tell us, the moment they tell him that, he will cool down. He wouldn't want to say anything against any of them. So I think I'm going to look at the let's look at the list of persons subject to recommended for public sanctions that they shouldn't take part in any politics in Liberia. Let me go to 271 page. I hope up there. 271. I'm looking for. Before that, let me do this. Let me look at the torture, including rape and ill treatment. Let me look at some of. Let me look at the catalog of selected human rights violations over the period 1979 to 2003, mostly documented by non-TRC sources. So let's look at this catalog and hear what it says. February 1979, 7 people, including 1 woman, Allen Yancey et al., convicted and hanged in Monrovia for ritual Boyo killings in 1976. April 14, 1979. Brutal suppression by government security of a pending mass demonstration over planned increase in the price of rice. More than 100 people were killed and some 500 injured, according to the Liberian government statements. And let's go down. March 1980. A major crackdown and arrest of Bacchus Matthews and opposition leaders and supporters by Tobot government. Hundreds were rounded up and up around the country, beaten, tortured, and dehumanized while in prison, awaiting trial. April 9, 1980, government issued a wanted dead or alive hunt for members of the opposition. Wow. Many arrested, detained, and tortured at the military facility of Post Stockade because of their political beliefs. That was really hard. April 12, 1980, Samuel Doe's bloody overthrow of the TWP government of William Talbot. Scores were killed during the takeover on charges of corruption and human rights violations. On 17 April, shadow trials without due process proceeded against 14 members of the government. 13 were publicly executed on. Thank you, Pinky. Pinky Joe. Thank you very much. Okay. It says here, 13 were publicly executed on April 22nd. The prisoners were tied to stakes and shot in public view. Proceedings against another 10 detained former officials continued throughout May, and 400 other prisoners, including family members of the deposed president, remained in custody without charge or trial for a prolonged period. March 1981, 7 people were executed by hanging after being summarily convicted of alleged murder and conspiracy in influencing the conduct of armed men. June 1981, 14 lower rank soldiers were arrested and accused of plotting to overthrow the government and to assassinate several leading members. After a summary trial without defense counsel, 13 of the soldiers were sentenced to death and allegedly secretly executed in the post-stockade prison, Monrovia. And go down a little bit, late June 1982. This is what brought us to the war. This is how our plight is actually put into order as things were happening. Late June 1982, Sergeant David Bede was executed by firing squad after being convicted of murder by the Supreme Military Tribunal. January 3rd, 1982, 4 soldiers executed. Some of us were, we were still young, young girls, young boys growing up and things. Most of the years that I'm calling for now, isn't it? Yes. February 3rd, 1982, 4 soldiers executed by firing squad without trial. They allegedly confessed during a hurried preliminary investigation by the military authorities to having participated in an armed robbery in which 3 other soldiers died. 1983, the Nimba raid by supporters of Thomas Krumba in Yekepa, Lamco Mining Company, and government offices left many injured and rights violated. February 8 and 9, 1984, Willis Knuckles, journalist of the Daily Observer newspaper and a correspondent for the BBC in Liberia, was detained at Post-Stockade prison. He was severely beaten upon his arrest and also whipped during the following days. June 1984, Rufus Dapo, a freelance journalist and a former editor of the government-controlled New Liberian newspaper, was arrested and taken to maximum prison Bedeyala under harsh conditions and released in November without charge. April to October 1985. In the months preceding the elections, several leading opposition politicians and others were imprisoned. They included Dusty Walkley, a prominent member of the Liberian People's Party (LPP), and John Kawie, another LPP member, after expressing doubts as to whether the elections would be fair. Both were released without charge. And down a little bit, July 1985. Some of you on the platform, maybe you're just born or yeah. So, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, July 1985. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, a leading member of the Liberian Action Party (LAP), was placed under house arrest, and a few days later she was detained and moved to the Post-Arcade prison, tried before the Special Military Tribunal and sentenced to 10 years imprisonment for sedition, released 12 days later. This is all happening under those regime after they took over. November 1985, random campaign of terror in Nimba and other counties against the people of Nimba suspected of supporting the failed coup attempt of General Thomas Kurumba. On November 12, General Charles Julu of the Executive Mansion Guard Battalion (EMG) led the purge against the Nimba people. Human rights abuses, including killings, occurred on a substantial scale the days following the failed coup. The victims appeared mostly to be civilians who had not been involved in the conspiracy but who were suspected by the government of being sympathetic towards Thomas Kurumba. A number of people unaccounted were killed, including Charles Bayon, a senior television journalist working for the Liberian Broadcasting System, who was killed a few days after the coup at the Executive Mansion, official residence of head of state though. 1987, John Vambo, a journalist, was also detained without charge in August and later released. 1987 again, Zay Gonti, a business woman, was arrested in May and detained incommunicado and without trial for over 3 months in the Post-Arcade and later released. We go down to 1989, Gabriel William Wole and 9 other prisoners of conscience remained in prison throughout the year. They were convicted without due process and imprisoned under poor conditions. October 1989, Momodu Lavla and 2 other students, including Benedict Galawulo, were detained allegedly and without charge for 2 weeks and eventually killed in early 1990. January 1990, the government said a number of rebels had been captured and would be brought to trial, but they appeared to include Gil and minor civilians arrested in Monrovia. None was brought to trial and their fate is unknown. Meanwhile, a counterinsurgency by the AFL against people mainly of Nimba origin led to killings, burning of villages, and looting. This forced 160,000 civilians in Nimba County to flee into Guinea and Ivory Coast from January to May. Massacres in May were led by Captain James Chile and Edwin Voka. May 1990, Angeline Water Allison and 2 others sentenced to life imprisonment for complicity to murder but appear to be prisoners of conscience. June 1990, murder of Moses Dopo by Benjamin Yeten for questioning the leadership status of Charles Taylor of the MPFL. Wow. Wow, man. What can you do? Why should you do this to your own fellow citizen? Wow. June 1990, I'm going to read that again. Murder of Moses Duopo by Benjamin Yeten for questioning the leadership status of Charles Taylor of the MPFL. Let's be mindful. Let's be mindful. The particular area here. Let's be mindful. The history shouldn't repeat itself. When you question the ability, when you question the suitability of a leader, and you are mocked at, let's be mindful of this particular area. 1990, June of 1990, murder of Moses Duopo by Benjamin Yeten for questioning the leadership status of Charles Taylor of the MPFL. June 1990, massacre of 27 Gil and minor family members of the AFL by Moses Thomas, Moses Wright, James Cherry, and George Dwyer, reportedly under orders of Samuel Doe. Between June and August 1990, killing of prominent Liberians including Jackson F. Doe, Kpakio, Gabriel Pole, and up to 80 others associated with the MPFL in a purge allegedly authorized by Charles Taylor, Paul Vey, Henry Kadia, George Mansour, and George Kasua, effected the arrest in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County. Jackson F. Doe was murdered in Zogowe, Nima County. Early July 1990, Bakedu Lofa County massacre of 500 ethnic Mandingos by MPFL, and Imam was beheaded. This happened in Liberia, my people. It happened in Liberia. Early July 1990, Bakedu, that's Lofa County massacre of 500 ethnic Mandingos by MPFL, and Imam was beheaded. July 29, 1990, massacre of over 500 men, women and children, mainly of Gil and minor ethnicity, seeking refuge at the St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Monrovia as repressor for the Bakedu massacre. There you go. These are the people. These are the people that went to seek refuge. They went in our building, thinking that the cross is there, thinking that when you enter that building, you enter a sacred place. The respect for God will be there. 500 men, women, and children, many of Gil and minor. August the 2nd, 1990, massacre of 250 Gils and minors seeking refuge at the JFK Hospital in Monrovia, allegedly led by George Dwyer. August 1990, about 50 foreigners, including Americans, were detained by the MPFL. The MPFL also took prisoner at least 30 Nigerians as well as nationals of Guinea and Ghana as part of attacks on ECOWAS citizens whose countries were contributing troops to ECOMOG. Yeah, in Monrovia, however, this one was in Monrovia. There were reports of widespread arrests among the Ghanaian community living in areas under the MPFL's control in response to ECOWAS' decision to deploy ECOMOG. Yeah, that took place. 1991. the INPFL reportedly held one woman at its camp throughout 1991, having taken her prisoner in November 1990, and to be holding a number of children at an orphanage within the camp as human shield to deter a possible attack by ECOWAS forces. We're talking about INPFL, not talking about Prince Johnson base. February 1991, the INPFL detained and ill-treated some 7 members of the Interim Legislative Assembly for 3 days. September 1991. After the September Urimo incursions into Western Liberia from Sierra Leone, and again in December, foreign and Liberian aid workers were detained for several days by the MPFL, assaulted and accused for spying. June 1, 2002, Ambassador Albert Kpakio killed on June 1, 2002 by forces loyal to Alhaji Nkrumah over power struggle within the Urimo movement. April 1992, Father Serafino Dafpon was arrested by MPFL for possessing interim government currency and a Roman Catholic newsletter alleged to be seditious literature. He was released after paying a large fine, but rearrested allegedly on suspicion on espionage. He was held in a police station in Banga until mid-May, when he was released and deported to Cote d'Ivoire. October 1992, Operation Octopus was the MPFL unprovoked attack on Ecomog and Monrovia, left scores of civilians dead, paralyzed the city, and created a humanitarian disaster. October 1992, up to 300 orphans and former government officials were apparently taken away by MPFL forces on about 28 October from an orphanage near Gunnersville. Orphans who escaped reportedly said that the MPFL was forcing the boys to fight for them. October 1992, 5 Catholic nuns were slain in Gunnersville, Monrovia, during the Octopus attack by Christopher Vambo and Edward Woma of the MPFL. June, Edward Wowa. This guy, he's in one of the videos. This is a guy that was talking about using power saw to cut people into half, their enemies, and then who were justifying rape, that they have, he said that they have, what they call intelligent rape. Or so. This is the guy, remember his name, Edward Wawa. Okay, June 6, 1993, in fact, he appeared before the TRC and gave his testimony. So I think because of that, he's off the list for persecution, because he said he was, he exercised remorse. June 6, 1993, massacre of 600 displaced persons at the harbor camp within Firestone Plantation. Ego. 600 of your own citizen children, older people. The UN WACO Commission placed responsibility at the doorsteps of the AFL. Observers and TRC findings hold the MPFL responsible for the massacre in which the victims were burned on the outskirts of the camp. November 1993, we're doing this to our own Liberian people. The MPFL detained UN aid workers for several days, accusing them of spying. They were later released. November 1993 again. After thousands of refugees had fled from the fighting in Sierra Leone into Lofor County, UNIMO forces reportedly took about 300 persons as prisoners on suspicions of being supporters of the Revolutionary United Front (RUF). 1993, murder of 6 Senegalese ECOMOS soldiers by Oliver Vining, Timothy Morba, and Joe Doe in Vahon on orders of Chancellor and Defense Minister Thomas Uweyo. The bodies were dumped in Vahon Valley. The one never went back home. Aga. They left their children, their wives, they left their family people, their mothers alive, their brothers and sisters. They said they came to help Liberia to end the war. Their bodies end up being dumped in the valley. Never went home. May 1994, the LPC reportedly detained 10 Ugandan unnamed soldiers, releasing them a few days later. May 1994, again, in separate incidents, Mandingo UNIMO fighters held hostage 17 UN employees delivering food aid and 16 Nigerian ECOMOS soldiers, accusing them of supporting the rival ethnic crime UNIMO faction. So that was UNIMO K accusing UNIMO J. They were released after a few days. June 1994, AFS soldiers detained unmale staff at Sheffling Barracks near Monrovia for 3 days. June 1994 again, Crown UNIMO, that's UNIMO J, fighters took hostage 6 unarmed unmale officers in Tomenburg for 2 days, reportedly beating them and subjecting them to mock executions. July 1994, the MPFL was reported to be holding about 25 ECOMOS soldiers and 30 long-term political prisoners. September 9, 1994, the MPFL arrested 43 unarmed unmale observers and 6 NGO workers and held them at 9 different sites. 33 were released after 5 days and the rest were released by 18 September. The UN reported that some were beaten and terrorized by their captors. September 1994, MPFL fighters reportedly detained 43 unmale officers and 6 aid workers in various parts of the country for up to 10 days. September 1994, LPC fighters reportedly took 10 girls captive in Sabo Wolfkin, slashing their feet and forcing them to walk back to the fighters' base in Sano County. Wow. December 15, 1994, Cowfield massacre of 48 civilians while they were asleep. All right, our call was coming in. I just got distracted there. Call somebody trying to call me. So I need to, let me see where I can get my connection from. December 15, 1994, Cowfield massacre of 48 civilians while they were asleep on Dupo Road, Monrovia, by the MPFL. 48 civilians. Why? They're sleeping. Chee. January 1995, LPC fighters killed 18 civilians in Grand Creek County. January 1996, in the area around Tomenburg, UNIMO J detained 130 ECOMOS troops who had been engaged in clearing mines and held them for 10 days as a shield against attacks. February 1996, eight workers were held for 3 days by the LPC in southeastern Liberia. April 6, 1996, Monrovia fighting to arrest Roosevelt Johnson. Oh yeah, oh that day I got caught up. I went to visit my cousin on Camp Johnson Road, man. Yeah, I got caught up in that mess. April 6, 1996, Monrovia fighting to arrest Roosevelt Johnson in a combined MPFL Urumo operation with support of ECOMOG devastated the city, imposed economic and financial hardships, and caused deaths. During the fighting in Monrovia, members of ECOMOG and other foreign nationals were held at the Barclay Training Center military barracks by Crown troops loyal to Roosevelt Johnson. April 18, 1996, murder of 12 persons in Zuana Town and Blone Town, Bomi County. A group of fighters stormed the displaced camp and burned it down along with Camo Town. There you go. All right. Let me see if I can still go down a little bit. Torture, including rape and ill treatment. May 1989, a suspected murderer and another man sentenced to death for murder in February both died at Buchanan Central Prison, reportedly as a result of harsh conditions. October 1989, Henry B. Walker, a murder suspect, died at the Monrovia Central Prison, reportedly as a result of harsh conditions. October 1989, 2 murder suspects died at Monrovia Central Prison, apparently as a result of torture, ill treatment, or medical neglect. Following their arrest, thought to have been in April or May, they had been held illegally and incommunicado in a post-stockade, a military detention facility where political detainees have been tortured in the past. January 1989, while still formally allied to the interim government, the IMPFL ill-treated and held 2 journalists, Isaac Bantu and Dan Brown, for 3 days under harsh conditions. September 1992, nearly 600 ECOMOG soldiers were taken prisoner, some of whom were severely beaten by their MPFL captors. January 1993, ECOMOG beat and injured a British Broadcasting Corporation journalist, apparently because he had criticized ECOMOG in his reports. December 1993, 800 captured MPFL fighters held by the interim government at Monrovia Central Prison were reported to be suffering severe malnutrition and medical neglect. 5 were said to have died. July 1994, LPC fighters beat and detained for 5 days a civilian in Buchanan who re-insisted having his bicycle stolen. Oh wait, let me read that. July 1994, LPC fighters beat and detained for 5 days a civilian in Buchanan who resisted having his bicycle stolen. July 1994, LPC fighters at Banabo Beach in number 4 district allegedly heated machetes in a fire and branded their captives, leave large third-degree burns on their arms. There you go. On their victims. September 1994, the MPFL reportedly detained and ill-treated 30 civilians from the base Ecomog, from the Bassa ethnic group. Let me read it over. September 1994, the MPFL reportedly detained and ill-treated 30 civilians from the Bassa ethnic group in Butuo, Niba County, accused of supporting the LPC. Yeah, because they say LPC was the making of the Bassa, somebody from the Bassa tribe. September 1994, large numbers of civilians and refugees were beaten and raped, and their property looted by the armed groups involved in the fighting around Banga. September 1994, LPC fighters allegedly cut off the fingers and ears of Abbott Mandi, a journalist. 1995, LPC fighters operating with the support of the AFL systematically swept through rural areas in southeastern Liberia, robbing, torturing, and intimidating people and forcing them to take refuge in Bukana or other places under ECOMO control. Many of those fleeing to Bukana in February were reportedly to have been knotted, shot or flogged by LPC fighters. Oh God. At the time, large numbers of people, perhaps as many as 6,000, were reportedly being held by the LPC in the compounds of an agricultural company where many were raped. April 1995, Urimo K set ablaze the towns of Fasama, Zwana 1 and Zwana 2. Survivors reported rapes, abduction and looting. April 1995, Benjamin Wilson, a journalist with the Eye, was beaten by police when he refused to give them photographs he had taken of damages at a refugee compound in Monrovia. June 1995, UNICEF workers in Bukana reported that they had registered 652 cases of women who had been raped, mostly by members of the warring factions, within a period less than 6 months. July 1995, Bill Jacklaw, a journalist with the News, was beaten unconscious by Urimo J fighters. He had been interviewing Roosevelt Johnson when fighters stormed the building, and he tried to photograph the incident. 3 of those involved in the attack were arrested by ECOMOG and then handed over to the Urimo J High Command. September 1995, James Momo. James Momo is journalist with the Inquirer, was beaten by ECOMOG soldiers when trying to photograph AFL soldiers at a checkpoint. March 1996, MPFL's officials shot 2 men in the legs after they were found threatening civilians. All right, for today, we're going to end here. We're going to end here today. Hopefully next time I will continue from here, where it talks about additional extrajudicial executions, unlawful killing of civilians, including massacres. So you will hear more next time when I come. We'll continue from this point. You'll hear about more massacres in the TRC report. This is a TRC report. I'm just sharing with you on this edition, the special edition of the special edition of the program Inside the TRC. So be here. Hopefully every Saturday we're going to be here to bring you the program Inside the TRC. On this note, let me see. I hope you having a wonderful weekend wherever you are. Some of you already into Sunday as well. I hope you had a wonderful how they call it, weekend. For those of us still dragging and about to start a brand new week, I want to wish you the rest of the weekend. Have a blessing from the Almighty God from my end. We're going to about to come to the end of this edition of the program Inside the TRC. Until another time when I shall be back. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being there. Sorry, I think it was just about reading the TRC to you, not really opening the lines to make a call. So Liberia was not like this. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.